What's going on, everybody? I am here to do a review for Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's is based off of a video game that came out a few years ago, became very popular amongst, I guess you could say, teenagers and people in their early 20s. I can honestly say I've never played the game before, but I have heard of it, and I know that it had a vast following. So basically, this movie is about a man by the name of Mike who is taking care of his sister. You know, he became basically a guardian because his parents, well, his mother passed away. His father just became estranged because he couldn't really handle the weight of dealing with the passing of his wife, and it was too much. And then on top of that, something else happened to another sibling that he had as well, so it became overwhelming for him. And then Mike ended up becoming the legal guardian of his sister, whose name is Abby. He works as a security guard, and then something happens at his job that ends up with him getting fired from this particular job, and then he basically now has to find income, because if he doesn't, then the state will take his daughter away and give her into the custody of their aunt, who basically, let me just be honest with you, the aunt in this movie was horrible. I'm not going to call her exactly what she should be called in this review, because when I do my reviews I try to keep them a little quote-unquote family friendly, but y'all can pretty much fill in the blanks. So Mike has to get this job. He goes to this individual to go and see if he can get some kind of gainful employment, and then he ends up working at this place called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which was an old, I guess you can say, Chuck E. Cheese style, Discovery Zone style place that shut down in the 80s because some weird stuff happened to some children that went there, and they just kind of went missing, and they don't know what happened to them. And then a whole bunch of stuff just starts to happen. A whole bunch of supernatural things begin to happen at this place, and now Mike has to try to figure out, in a way, so to speak, how to turn these creatures or these machines off before they do something very, very drastic that can lead and lend to dire consequences. So with that being said, and y'all pretty much got the gist of what the movie is about, let me just go ahead and talk about the performance. The actor that played Mike, his name is Josh Hutcherson. If y'all seen the Hunger Game movies, he was the actor that played the character of Peter. That's pretty much what I really know him for. I'm sure he's been in other things, but that's the movie I really know him for, because I've seen all the Hunger Game movies, kind of a fan of them. And he played the character of Mike, and I really like how his character is portrayed, because he's a complex individual. He can tell that he's going through some things. He's never gotten over the trauma of something that happened in his childhood. I don't want to really spoil it for you, for those of you who want to watch it. And he's going above and beyond to do what he can to take care of his sister before something happens in which she can get taken away by that aunt of theirs, who, again, I'm not going to call her what I really want to call her in this video, but y'all know exactly what it is, because that aunt definitely has ulterior motives. Then you have this little girl who's her name is Abby, who plays the sister. And you know, she really finds solace in drawing. You can tell she's very artistic, and that's her comfort zone. That's her space. And I like the dynamic of, you know, Mike being the older brother, he's an adult, and Abby, she's just a little girl. So you can tell that there's a difference there between the two of them because of the age difference. You know, she's a little girl, he's an adult, and it's kind of hard for them to relate to each other, but they know at the end of the day, all they have is each other. And you can tell that even though there's a big age difference there, she definitely feels comfort with the Mike character and not with who wants to take her away. Then you have another character in there who's another main character. Her name is Victoria. She basically is a cop. She knows the ins and outs of this place. And when I'm thinking of it, I said I want to know more of her story, and I'm glad that they did take a little bit of a dive into her story, because it's like if they didn't, that would have been like a point taken away from this movie for me. But when you learn about what her backstory is, then it's like, okay, now we're getting into a bit of a plot twist here, there, and I'm gonna go into that when I give my pros and my cons about this movie. But yeah, she's basically a cop, and I guess you could say she kind of knows the ins and outs of this place, but you never really understand why she knows how this place operates. But again, once it gets into the movie itself, then you understand why she knows how this place works. So that pretty much takes care of all the characters of the movie. So now I'm gonna go into the pros and cons of the movie. And I actually believe it or not, I have more pros than cons when it comes to this movie. So the first pro is that I like that this movie is a period piece. This movie takes place in 2000, so that's 23 years ago. And it works because when you think about the animatronics and how they come to life and everything like that, for those of y'all who are familiar with the game, it works because if this was taking place in present day, all they would have to do is pull out their phone and record the interactions happening. So by this happening in 2000, when you didn't have smartphones or you didn't have tablets or anything of a recording device where you can actually have your proof of what was going on in this location, in this rundown, shut down, so-called theme environment, it makes it harder for people to believe you if you choose to tell anybody about what's going on here. So I like that they made this a period piece in 2000. The next pro that I have is the animatronic design. The way that they had these characters designed was very, very well. It took me back to my childhood when I think about Chuck E. Cheese. You know, back then they had the animatronic Chuck E. Cheese characters when you went to Chuck E. Cheese. Of course, now they're mascots. And I never knew the story as to why they got away from doing that, but I guess it could be a creep factor there. It's like you have these things that are moving in a robotic type of way. Their eyes are blinking. They got these big bulging eyes, so they could probably scare somebody. But now they've gone into the mascot where you can just put the costume on, put the head on, you know, the mask and whatnot, and have someone be under there, opposed to it being operated by a computer. But I did like the design of how they did look because it actually added to the creep factor that is there. The next thing that I liked is the setting. The way that they had this place designed, you can tell it drew from the 80s or the early 90s. You can look at it and people can tell that if you grew up at that time period and you went to a Chuck E. Cheese or a Discovery Zone, or there was this place in Maryland where I live at called Jeepers, kind of on the same line of that, you can look at that and tell that nostalgic feeling and look at that setting was like, wow, when I was a kid, it looked just like that. You have your ball pit, you have the different games, you have the thing where you can get the tickets. You know, of course, now you have your Dave and Buster's, but you know, that's mostly digital now. Like everything is like really digital. Back then, everything was very practical. So I like that they had the setting there and the way that they have it looked. It looks like a place you would not want to be during the day or at night. So I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that I could take this job there, but I know why the Mike character did, because he had to look out for his sister at the end of the day. Without any kind of employment, she wouldn't have been able to be in his care. So I can understand why, but at the end of the day, that place looks really creepy. It's very run down. It's very dark, damp. The electricity is horrible. It is not the best, but it works because of the theming of the movie. The next thing that I liked about this is one of the plot twists. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the plot twist was, but one of the first plot twists that happens in this movie involves one of the main characters. And as I'm looking at the movie, I'm starting to figure it out, like kind of slowly figure it out. I'm sitting there saying to myself, I wonder if this is, or if I wonder if this isn't. But that first plot twist caught me off guard when something was revealed about one of the characters in the movie. And I'm not going to say again what the plot twist was because I'm trying to keep this review as spoiler free as possible. The next thing that I liked about this movie is actually a pro and a con, but I'm going to tell you what the pro is first. This movie is dual, I guess you can say dual platforming, meaning that you can watch this movie in the theater or you can watch it at home on Peacock. So Peacock, as you know, is one of the hundreds of streaming platforms that are out right now. So if you don't want to go watch this movie in a theater, you can watch it in the comfort at your own home or wherever you have Peacock downloaded and you have a subscription to the platform and watch it that way as well. But again, keep that in mind when I go to the cons, because I believe it's also a con as well. Now, the last pro that I have, and this is probably one of the better pros, is that the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's video game actually had Corey Kenshin in the movie. Now, you know, I've talked about Corey Kenshin on my platform before because of some issues that he was having with the YouTube platform. Y'all can go back and check that out. I think it's dope that they have Corey Kenshin in this movie, because Corey Kenshin is one of the few, if not the earliest people to play Five Nights at Freddy's back when it first came out. It's because of him that Five Nights at Freddy's, the game, actually became as popular as it did, and it's actually a huge reason as to why Corey Kenshin has a huge following right now. Like, if anyone could tell you about the early days of watching him, can tell you that they came to him watching him because of him playing the game Five Nights at Freddy's. So I thought it was dope that the creator and the director of this movie reached out to him to give him a little small part in this movie. He only had one scene. He only had like 2 or 3 lines, maybe 4 at the most, where he plays a taxi driver. It's not a spoiler because that was shown in the trailer. It was shown in both trailers, as a matter of fact. So I thought it was dope to have his character, have him be in the movie. It's a way of just hey, giving back to a person that helped elevate this game to the popularity that it is. So I thought that was very dope. Now that I've taken care of all the pros, I'm gonna get into the cons, and I only have 3 cons. The first con that I have is that the movie is PG-13. I truly believe that, as scary as the game was from what I've heard, they could have definitely elevated this and made an R-rated movie. And because of it being PG-13, a lot of the kills that happened in the movie, you saw it, but it was either off camera, they kind of did a silhouette type of thing, or you just kind of saw what the after effect of it was. It was only one kill in this movie where you actually saw it happen, and I believe that's probably as far as they was allowed to go. And they did it with the main animatronic, which was Freddy, which made sense. But because it's PG-13, they kind of had to scale back on it. But because they showed that one, they said, we'll give you this one, but we're gonna kind of allude to the other ones that do occur. And then most of the kills that do happen in this movie all kind of happen at one time. And if you watch the movie, you'll see exactly what it is that I mean. Now, the second con that I have, which goes back to what I was saying, was one of the pros that I had, was Peacock. Again, that's a pro, but it's also a con, because again, it's kind of a thing of, they did the same thing with the last Halloween movie last year, where they did a dual platforming of showing the movie in the theater and then having it on Peacock. So my thing is this, that's fine to have it that way, but that kind of cuts into your money if you're trying to make a certain amount of money. But thankfully, when it comes to horror movies, those are some of the cheapest movies to make. So it's not like they need a huge box office in order to make their budget. It'll be nice to have, but they've already had their success with the game, so it's okay even if there's not a lot of money to be made here. But you know what, why not? So I think that's also a con as well, if they were trying to make more money from this game, but from this movie. But honestly, I think this is one of those movies that's probably a one-off. I don't see a sequel coming from this. It could possibly be with how it ended, but I personally don't think this movie needs a sequel. That's just my take on it. And my last con, because like I said, I only had 3 cons, was going back to the one plot twist that I thought was really good. But the second plot twist, it was good, but it was predictable, because I said to myself, early on, I kind of figured out what the plot twist was after I figured out the first plot twist was revealed to us. The second one kind of kicked in for me, and when it was revealed to me, it wasn't a thing of, oh wow, that's crazy, I didn't see that coming. For me, when that second plot twist came in, it was like, oh, I figured that out about 20-30 minutes ago. So it wasn't no shock value there for me, but it was very interesting to see how it all kind of played out. For those of y'all who shock easily, that would shock you, but I figured out the second plot twist 30 minutes before it actually happened. Like I said, I figured out the second plot twist after the first plot twist was revealed. But again, you have to watch the movie to understand what it is that I'm talking about. But all in all, that is my review for Five Nights at Freddy's. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. This is a movie that you would go and see. Honestly, when I went to go see it, there wasn't a lot of people in my theater, even with some people in there who had kids in there. And sometimes I'm kind of worried when people bring their children to come see these, to see a horror type movie. And this movie, if I had to classify it, it falls into a couple of genres: horror, psychological thriller, because it definitely has some moments where it does play with your mind a little bit, and maybe some dramatic elements there, but that's probably the genre that I would put this movie into, but it was some kids in there. They were pretty much fine. They pretty much handled it well. But that's my review for Five Nights at Freddy's. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. This is a movie that you would go and check out in the theaters or on Peacock, or would you not watch it at all? And also let me know, have you ever played the game Five Nights at Freddy's? Because I've always heard that this was a very scary game. Like I said, I never personally played it, but from those who I've seen play it, they've gotten scared playing it, you know, because of some of the stuff that does occur in the game as well. And you know, if you do watch the movie and you have played the game, is there some correlations there as well besides the obvious? With that being said, I'm gonna get off of here. Y'all let me know what y'all think.